Okay, this is an exercise which I like to set for my students to exercise recall in a way that is fun and creative and rewarding. I find that recall exercises are only beneficial. They test our brain, they test our recall, they test the networks. The more you use them, the more it builds. They are an exercise which shows us how good our brains naturally are or currently are at recall, and they give us an idea of how much work we need to put in order for something to stay there. It also helps to do this exercise when you are not only calm going through it the first few times, but then also when you are stressed, such as, say, after a really big run or something that's really got your heart rate up, and therefore your brain might not be functioning as quickly as before, because that simulates a little bit the kind of stress that you might be experiencing when you sit a test or an exam. So here I've got 15 cards which I've randomly shuffled from a deck of cards. 15 cards, I believe, something like that. I've got them in an order. I keep them together with this rubber band so that they never change order. If they change order or get shuffled by someone by accident or a sibling, that can be extremely annoying. So try to keep them together. Okay, now the next thing that we do, we start to go over the cards. This is the creative part. We need to decide on a meaning that you give to each of the suits. We're doing this because with these random cards, what we're going to do is build a story. Okay, so we're going to create a story out of the cards that we see. It's random cards. It's going to be a random story. You are going to be the one that creates the story, but to create a story, it helps to have a basis. So in the cards, we already have a basis. We have suits, we have numbers. The suits can have a meaning, which I'll take you through now. So you can make up your own. I make up hearts means people in love. There you go. Spades means gardeners for me. Spades, gardeners. Clubs means nightclubs or fun places to go. Diamonds means like riches, treasures, rich people. And that's it. Hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is come up with a random story. Sometimes you'll find that you create a story which is so flawlessly linked the whole way through that remembering the story is not so hard. In which case, you test yourself a few times, add 5 cards the next time, and just keep going until you reach the entire deck. Okay, so let me take you through mine. So this is my story. This is 5 people fell in love with the Jack. Those 5 people were gardeners. And they loved going to these 8 clubs. Sometimes the story's a bit random. If you can't link it perfectly to the next card, then you just have to work on that. You've got to create something. Or if you can't make a flawless link to the story, then you just have to make sometimes a bit of a random jump. And then remembering that random jump is just practice. You just have to keep going through your cards. You'll probably keep getting stuck at the same point. And then you come back and eventually you remember it. So these gardeners love going to these 8 clubs, which they think are ace, and they're really expensive. In those clubs are 4 treasures. And then, having been going to the 8 clubs, they find a new club, so that takes them from 8 to 9, in which they find an extra treasure, taking you from 4 of diamonds to 5 of diamonds. But then they find a treasure in every one of the clubs. So 9 clubs, 9 treasures. After finding all of them, they go back to the 5th club, where they meet the queen of the clubs. The queen has 10 gardeners, and each of those gardeners owns their own club. So that's 10 clubs. But then I say, no, that's a joke, because the king, the rich king, owns all the clubs. And his favourite club is the 7th one. And the queen, the rich queen, found out about this and sentenced to death 8 of the gardeners. So that's my story so far. It gives you an example of what you can do. Eventually, what you want to be doing is memorizing this and then take a break. Take a break of, say, a day or 2 days. Come back, see if you can remember it. If you can, that means that your recall is that good. If you can't and you keep getting stuck, that shows that you need to refresh your memory more frequently. If you can find a way to get this memory inside your brain using memory tricks or stories, whatever, this is the beginning of learning how mind palaces work. And this is a really awesome thing to investigate, in my opinion. The next exercise you can do is cutting the deck. So once you've memorized it, you just cut the deck and you say 9 of clubs, and then you think, okay, what came after the 9 of clubs? And I believe it was the 5 of diamonds. It's a really good exercise you can do with someone or against somebody. You can challenge somebody else to do the same thing as you. They can be learning the same deck of cards as you, or they can have their own. So I think that's all I want to say about that. It's a real test of discipline. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of random fun, because learning this, there's no understanding to be had here, which when we try to memorize things to do with maths or physics, for example, we have an expectation of ourselves sometimes, or we fear the expectations of others to understand and learn these things. So with that can come worry and anxiety. If you're learning something like this, which is just completely random pack of cards, none of that is on the table. It's literally just a bunch of information which you can learn. It encourages you to be creative and to sometimes come up with quite a silly story, which is something which is very missing with a lot of maths and physics. We don't have any silliness in these subjects apart from really bad jokes. So another reason why I love this. All right, so give it a go and let's see what you can do.